Originally part of Stalin's Soviet Union, Turkmenistan's government has had a history of being repressive. The country played an important economic role within the Soviet Union due to their vast amount of natural resources. As a result of being in the Union for over 70 years, it was difficult for Turkmenistan to adjust to their newly gained independence in 1991. Not knowing any other government except a repressive one, Communist leader Saparmurat Niyazov decided to preserve the Soviet ways in the newly independent Turkmenistan. Niyazov, elected as president in 1992, abolished the need for re-elections, thus making him president for life. Like Stalin, Niyazov created a cult of personality around him to ensure his popularity and to make sure no one was allowed to oppose him. After an attempted assassination in 2002 on Niyazov, he tightened security and began placing restrictions on media. Niyazov's rule in Turkmenistan ended after his death in 2006. However, the free reign did not last, as Niyazov's successor, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, adopted a similar ruling style as him. Ever since his election, Berdimuhamedov has kept a tight leash on the people, and is no doubt the source of power in Turkmenistan. Due to Turkmenistan's historically oppressive government modeled by the Soviet Union, a civil society will be impossible to achieve, as evidenced by the harsh treatment of journalists. For many years, the process to reformation and modernization had failed to succeed. Although Turkmenistan's constitution claims to protect the rights of its people, it rarely does so. The aggression of the Turkmenistan government against its people, especially those who practice freedom of speech and press, such as journalists, are hostile. However, this is rarely portrayed in the media, and the repression of the Turkmenistan's government continues to remain untold. President Berdimuhamedov's autocratic government continues to have near total control of media despite his pledges to take steps towards less restrictions, such as providing increased internet access. The government retained a monopoly on the national media in 2012, and since then there have been no independent media in the country. All TV stations and papers are under the authorities' control. There is filtering, and many social media sites are blocked. The more the internet develops, the more the control over online communication and web content increases. The Turkmenistan government also obtains full control of nationwide publications. A privately published Turkmen magazine, Rizgal, unexpectedly circulated within Turkmenistan, but it became clear that the magazine was produced by the government-controlled Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs and did not stray from the official line. The president's picture is also shown on the front page of the papers daily. State-run newspapers like these are used to disseminate government propaganda and ignore issues relevant to Turkmen citizens. Although Berdimuhamedov established a new media regulation law which enacted in December of 2012, the United Nations Human Rights Committee noted repression of free speech, harassment and intimidation of journalists, and monitoring and censorship of their internet. The journalists in Turkmenistan reflect this repression of the Turkmenistan government. Reporter Nepeskuliev, who works with the Turkmen language service of Radio Liberty and with Alternative Turkmenistan News, reflected on the issues of chaotic state of healthcare in western Turkmenistan. Nepeskuliev's photographs shows the hard realities about life of ordinary people in Turkmenistan and about the relative luxury some government officials enjoy. Nepeskuliev has the right of freedom to expression to show these images, but by throwing him in jail, the government is violating his right. Nepeskuliev's cellmate expands on his life in Turkmenistan and their jail.
На мой взгляд, это, знаешь, не только туркменская тюрьма. Весь Туркмения тюрьма. Наружно колючей проволокой. Весь Туркменистан. Что в тюрьме, что на воле у них одинаково. Первый раз видел такое беззаконие только в Туркменистане. Абсолютно беззаконие. Я даже, если бы сказал, что эта страна первым стоит в мире, да, по коррупции, я бы, наверное, тоже не ошибся.
Ogusapa Muradova, a 58-year-old correspondent for Radio Free Europe, was put in prison and died mysteriously in September 2006. Her family was not permitted to see her after a mock trial in August 2006, where she was charged for possession of illegal ammunition which had been planted in her automobile. The government claimed she died of natural causes. However, her adult children, allowed to retrieve her body on September 14, 2006, said it had marks of torture and a visible head wound. In July of 2011, reporter Dovletmirat Yaskuliev documented a series of deadly explosions from the town of Abadan and was charged for, quote, disseminating defamatory information through the media and causing national, social, and religious provocations, end quote. At first, the government said fireworks triggered the blasts, but journalists such as Yaskuliev managed to gather video footage and eyewitness accounts, even though police threw up a cordon around the town to prevent reporters from reaching the center of the explosions. This exposure of the authorities forced them to admit the blasts had occurred at a military base and were far more serious than initially conceded. Officially, 15 people died in the blasts, although independent sources have said the death toll is much higher. Since then, reports have emerged from Turkmenistan of the authorities tracking down and punishing reporters who have exposed their cover-up. Journalist Yoshvan Anagurban expresses the hardships he went through as a journalist in Turkmenistan.
I was arrested twice, and second time I was arrested today. The security agents of the Turkmen KGB planted in my bag computer disk containing military information. I was held in the KGB cell. They held there only the most dangerous, the most important criminals or political prisoners. It was a very hard time for me and for my family. And finally I made false confession in front of camera, and they released me. They wanted to stop me working for Radio Free Europe. Their only goal was that.
Turkmenistan is one of the most risky places for journalists and bloggers in the world. Turkmen service correspondents and their family members are regularly harassed by Turkmen officials in order to force them to end their work with Radio Free Europe. Turkmen service correspondents are regularly summoned to the national security agencies for questioning as they face imprisonment or confinement in psychiatric clinics for their journalistic work and are denied medical care and are subject to constant surveillance. They and their family members are blacklisted, meaning they are not allowed to travel abroad and may be easily dismissed from their positions at work or expelled from schools. Turkmenistan's constitution enforces laws protecting the freedom of its citizens. However, many of them have not been observed in the general public. Section 2, Article 28 states, quote, "Citizens of Turkmenistan have the right to freedom of opinion and expression, as well as to receive information if it is not a state or any secret protected by law." Article 38, every citizen has a right to education. Article 39, all rights and interests of citizens in the area of creative, artistic, and cultural activities are protected by law. Article 23, no one can be subjected to torture, cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 18, no one can be deprived of their rights and freedoms. End quote. The situation in Turkmenistan is going from bad to worse. It's the worst in the region. In Afghanistan, journalists are able to criticize the government's policies, and in Iran, it is possible for journalists to discuss social situations without deviating from the official line. However, none of this is possible in Turkmenistan. People are less aware of what is happening around them. Because information is power, by lacking information, the people can be easily manipulated, which affects the people's ability to think, predict, and make decisions for themselves. In terms of creating a proper civil society, Turkmenistan unfortunately has a bleak future. Creating a civil society in Turkmenistan will be especially difficult due to having no previous experience with democracy or civil society in general. Turkmenistan has been under the rule of the Soviet Union for a very lengthy period of time, before becoming independent. Thus, the country in whole has become used to being repressed by their secretive government, which leads to present-day restricted Turkmenistan. In addition, Turkmenistan's culture has remained unchanged for so long, making it hard for an entire population to shift its view on how the actions of their government are wrong. Turkmenistan's population has become accustomed to turning a blind eye or simply being ignorant to acts such as government and media censorship, as well as suppression of journalists, indicating that the idea of a rebellion or uprising is faint or close to non-existent. As such, there is currently no evidence to show that Turkmenistan can create its own civil society, as evidenced through the government's treatment of journalists and media.